Thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Paul Adepoju, and I'm the community manager for the International Center for Journalists of Pamela Howard Forum on Global Crisis Reporting. And this has been a special series of webinars focused on empowering the Truth Global Summit, which we are reaching audience and journalists and content creators, advocates and promoters, and big fans of the truth across the world, empowering them with the skills, knowledge, insights, and tools, resources, and probably mindset shifting approaches towards better understanding how to communicate the truth. It's quite obvious that one of the major challenges that the media ecosystem continues to grapple with, striving to look at how to go about it, is the issue of how to let the truth catch up with and effectively overtake misinformation. And while there are channels through which misinformation can be promoted, continues to expand, creating new challenges for journalists and others in this truth media ecosystem. These same tools that journalists have an uphill battle in addressing, utilizing, and finding ways to utilize it, to work with them, are also available for them to promote the truth. And one of such is the era of synthetic media. Many times, many videos that you watch today, if you're not really careful, they may actually not be the truth. And if you are caught as a journalist, actually we've seen cases where journalists were spoofed and they were unable to quickly delineate false content from real content. So what do you really need to know about this issue of synthetic media, including deepfakes, and how can you work with them, and what insights can the current trends in artificial intelligence landscape also give you in what you do, and how can you make sense of this? Or this is the reason why we are here today, to open our eyes, expand our body of knowledge and understanding on deepfakes, synthetic media, and artificial intelligence. And I'm really glad to be joined by someone from another organization that we've worked with in the past, and we are always excited to have them on our webinar. I'm talking about Shireen from witness.org. Shireen, how close did I get to correctly pronouncing your name?
Very close to first name. Yeah, it's Shireen, Anlen. Thank you so much, Paul, for inviting me to be part of this this series.
Yeah, so we are really glad that you can join us today, and thank you very much to you and everybody at witness.org for accepting our invitation. And to our panelists, to our participants, I can see that you're already doing what we usually do. So if you don't know what you usually do, if you are joining us, please use the chat box. The chat box is open, so let us know where you are joining us from, so that probably me or Shireen can find a way to localize some of our conversations and tailor it down to your region. So thank you very much, Samira from Ethiopia, Samuel from Zambia, we see you, Eneti also from Zambia. Thank you very much for joining us. And I also see Redwan from Morocco, Karen from Canada, Mexico City. This is Uruguay, everybody, St. Vincent, and everywhere that you're joining us from. Thank you very much. Don't be shy to let us know where you're joining us from. And if you have direct questions for Shireen, please go to the Q&A. Sometimes it's difficult trying to figure out where the questions are in the chat box. So please, if you can save me that stress, please use the Q&A option exclusively for your question. And we're also streaming live on Facebook, and I want to give a quick shout out to our Facebook audience. So wherever you're also joining us from, don't be shy to engage with us using the comment box under this video that you are watching. And you should, if you don't know, the goal at the end of this webinar series, there will also be grant opportunities. So please, if you are putting ideas together, start thinking of something. If you are interested, we'll provide you with more details towards before the end of the webinar series. So thank you very much. There are several other announcements, but I think I should not hit into Shireen's time so that we have that flowing dialogue. Yes, that's about the announcement I can take from that. Shireen, are you ready?
Yes, of course. Let me share my screen and start by saying that, yeah, it's really impressive to see from where everyone are. I'm really bad at looking at a chat while I'm presenting. So I will aim to leave 30 minutes for Q&A so we can like engage together. But if there is anything specific I need to, you want me to focus on or like highlight for me, Paul, during the presentation, please voice it out. Yeah, so we are here today to explore deepfakes, synthetic media, and AI from perspective of what we should fear, but how can we prepare? And like Paul presented, I'm Shireen Anlen. I'm the media technologist at Witness, the Technology Threats and Opportunity Program that we have, where we explore different aspects of synthetic media, deepfake, detection, authenticity, and provenance, as well as other areas. And I wanted to start with a bit of a background about Witness, just to not assume that everyone knows us. There is a barcode sometimes when there are links, if it's more easy to scan it with your phone. So Witness is a human rights organization that aim to help people use video and new technology to protect and defend human rights. We look at it from the perspective of the violence isn't new, but the cameras or the technology that we are using keep progressing and advancing and challenging our mission. And so we deeply care. We're really working really hard in Witness to understand how people can create trustworthy, authenticate media, and how we can support that. We do that by publishing documentation and guidelines. We are global, so we are working on 5 different regions. We are based in 5 different regions in Africa, in Asia, Latin America, US, and the Middle East. And we are using those documentation to develop guidelines that can help people understand how to better like document war crime or a human rights violation, how to authenticate or verify that content. And part of that, we also develop like tips and other types of the guidelines that we are doing. We are also part of developing tools. This is from proof mode, where you can capture your location in a secure and hash way. And also we are part of developing standards. And we're doing all that work in that happen under the context of often authorities and people in power challenging the truth of the content that people produce and we produce, and particularly challenge it when it's challenged their power. So here, what you see is basically an example under my screen is example from a Witness team in Africa that's shared it around the EndSARS movement, the end of the EndSARS movement against the police violence, and the response that the Nigerian military respond by dismissing the incriminating footage as fake. And this is not a new challenge for journalists and fact checkers or human rights defenders, right? There is the ongoing burden to prove something that is real or it's fake. Usually the burden is on our shoulders. But how we are doing it and the context we are doing it is keeping challenged by the new technology. So that's the perspective we're going to talk today from. And that's where Witness is looking at. So in the last 5 years, Witness has been leading a global initiative called Prepare, Don't Panic, where we consciously coming from the prepare and don't panic, where we're seeing that the rhetoric around deepfake or synthetic media usually undermine the possibility for meaningful actions, and preparing for it, allowing us also to understand how we can engage with it and how we can better find a way to engage the communities. So we are leading global inclusive discussion around deepfake in the region I mentioned, enabling communities and journalists to assess the priorities, identify the threats, and think together about solutions. And we are bringing together technologists, journalists, media forensic experts, and community leaders, so different types of expertise from different fields, where we are centralizing journalists to understand the needs in the emerging landscape. So if you want to use the chat, I wanted to just start with like 2 questions to kind of assess where we are together. First is like, maybe you can provide a number from 1 to 10, how much you think you understand deepfake, and what does it mean? 10 mean that you understand everything, and 5 mean that you understand a fair bit, and 1 mean that you know absolutely nothing. Yeah, and I will give like 30 seconds for that, so just to see where we are all at. So we're all kind of like in the middle lower range of what does deepfake really means. And I thought it will be maybe nice to let
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. So, for instance, they could have me say things like, I don't know, Killmonger was right, or Ben Carson is in the sunken place, or how about this, simply, President Trump is a total and complete dipshit. Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele.
So that was like a quick presenting us the topic of deepfake. But the next question I wanted to ask is how worried you think you should be about those new forms of media manipulation, synthetic media, and someone is a million expert. 10 like worried, sorry, yeah. So 10, you cannot sleep at night. 1, you're not worried at all. And I see a lot of worried people here. Okay, I'm moving us on, but yeah, I'm starting to get stressed from how worried everyone are together with me. So the way what I'm gonna do in the next 45 minutes, 50 minutes, is going through what the technology is currently able to do, what threats we identify witness, and what we should worry about, and what solution currently exists and how we can prepare. So starting with the deepfake. Deepfake is a form of audiovisual manipulation that allows us to create realistic simulation of someone's face, voice, action that make them do or say something that they never did or say, or some event that never occurred. And there is a range of the landscape of deepfake specifically right now. 1 require no customization. It's an app that you upload your photo, 1 still photo, and it's animate this photo, kind of like what we see here in the app, Deep Nostalgia. We also saw an example for like an advocacy using that type of technology, putting your face on Zelensky and supporting Ukraine. So here it's just a service, it's an app, it's very accessible from your phone. And then on the other edge of that, there is advanced research, a very strong community, academic community that's creating sophisticated deepfake, where in this case of Tom Cruise, there is impressionist, so there is an actor doing it, there is machine learning models that runs, and we're trained specifically on Tom Cruise's face, and specifically imposing a face swap of Tom Cruise. And then there are also like a lot of like post-production work. So it's not just like here the machine learning is running it, there is a lot of like skills and expertise to make it look really well. But in the middle, there is this like vacuum of things that happening, ongoing things that keep happening, and not a lot of understanding and discussion about what's going on in this vacuum. And the deepfake itself is part of a larger generative AI landscape that we keep seeing more and more in the news, keep seeing more ChatGPT and other types of text generator that are part of the generative AI that support the deepfake technology as well. And what's interesting to remember and keep in mind that we are the citizenship, the individuals are providing the training data. So every text we put, every post we put, every image we put is being scrapped and being used to train and understand the underlying features of that text. If it's like how we phrasing, what the context of this text, how a sentence being structures, and what the underlying feature of a face, of a specific like shadows or movements, and so on. So the entire like internet is being this training data of those machine learning models, and as the computational power evolve, and that's part of why it's starting to be more and more available, because we have more computational power to train on more and more billions of images of data sets, what we could not do a few years ago. So just like a really fast recap of what technology we have today. So we have the ability to edit object outside of video. This is from Adobe using content aware fill. And you see that it's not just the cars being masked out, but also the shadows. So in a very realistic way, it's being masked. We can do that from our phone. I have a Google Pixel phone that has smart eraser, and I can just erase any figure I don't want to be involved in my photo. And we can like imagine the effect of OSINT on online investigation on that. We can edit face features. And this is from Photoshop, smart portrait in Photoshop that they added. And we can do that with text. It's very easy today just to give a photo of a man and saying, make it an old man. And this is using a stable diffusion type of technology. We can animate portrait. So this is like a good example for advocacy, good social good type of approach, which also like raise a lot of questions about consent and ethical questions that following that. We can style environment, and that's not new. We saw it in 2017. NVIDIA already showed us how California road can become a snowy road, and that was made to train self-driving cars in different types of environment. We do that in Photoshop, and we can do it in Runway, for example. We can do any video to style to any video. So you give a video, you give a style, either in text or in image, and it's export the video in that style. We can do real-time face and expression mapping. So the example in the left is from 2016. It's not new, but what we keep seeing is the improvement of how well and how precise those mapping exists on different feature, like blinking, like eyebrow, like face expression. It's becoming really sophisticated that we won't be able to really really like identify what is the real one or what's the fake. We can transfer motion. So in the left, the top left is the source, and then the middle is basically a still image that moves accordingly. And we can do that in 3D, more or less. So this is a new technology that came out in the end of last year, that you see that the driving video is moving the still image from the video from the left. We can generate fake faces, so these people never exist. What we see in this slide is the progression, right? So it's becoming more and more high resolution, realistic, where we cannot really spot the faces anymore. And there are even like research suggesting that we are finding fake faces even more genuine from real faces. So we're even trusting fake faces a little bit more than we're trusting authentic faces. And there we saw a lot of like in the recent Ukraine war, we saw a lot of like fake account using fake faces of fake people that never existed. And we can see how with the ChatGPT, this can even more progress with and become this like digital wildfire of fake accounts with fake posts, fake information. And we can generate anything. So from this person does exist, to this cat that does not exist, to this rental does not exist, to this disaster like climate disaster does not exist. This map does not exist, but we can also like alter map and change, affect event or hide event that never happened or did happen. We can do that in 3D. So it's starting to become better and better to really just generate whatever in 3D. And this is being really pushed by the new immersive technology like metaverse, AR, VR that is being discussed. And we saw a lot lately in the last year, since last April, text to image. And those are becoming more and more sophisticated, using like language models that are really understanding the contextual and cultural meaning of what a text means, of still Homer Simpson and The Godfather. So this really understands some cultural knowledge. And this is just an image I generated. And what in this image even tell us that it's fake? We can alter and manipulate it or edit images. So here I took the photo on the left is the original one, and I just added tanks to it. So we can really create events. And we can do that to videos now. So it's really still low resolution, and it's really easy to see that it's glitchy, but we can see where it can go, right? So this prompt that is on the slide being used to generate the entire video. And what's interesting is the movement, how the astronaut moves, how the dog moves. There is understanding of physicality in a sense. And we can use text to generate that video, or put a video and generate additions. So skateboard, or changing the hand, or putting fires, right? And do it in 3D. So video in 3D. And all of that exists in audiovisual world. So cloning, voice cloning, which means that I'm taking a segment of someone's voice and I'm using text to make that voice speak different sentences that it never said, they never said. And there is a nice example that...
I wish I could keep telling you that our mission in life is connecting people, but it isn't. We just want to predict your future behaviors. Spectre showed me how to manipulate you into sharing intimate data about yourself and all those you love for free. The more you express yourself, the more we own you. I would...
which also, that example included like also lip sync, right? So it's really working with the machine learning model to align that clone voice with the face and make it seem like they spoke it. And thinking about like how you can do it really, really fast, right? That's the production process becoming so instant. So we can use text to ask it to do like a Jerry Seinfeld routine, and then
Why does
a voice.
it seem like every time you're watching TV, there's a commercial for a new brand of cat food, and it's always some kind of crazy new flavor, like tuna and salmon surprise, or chicken and liver delight.
So immediately there was a prompt text, and then it was said in that person's voice. It wasn't even like, there wasn't a chain model that created that. It's one model. So how it can also like involve those 3D avatars, human-like avatars, using those text to image, text to voice type of technology. And we saw a really recent example using like Americans backing the military coup in West Africa, the Burkina Faso. And there was like a whole campaign of the same company that created those digital avatars their service was used to generate those new avatars that support the military coup. And we can do video to avatars. So we can just give a video and a whole avatar will come, and then we can work on the lip sync and voice and all these things that we just saw together. But I want to come back to this example of Tom Cruise, which is super sophisticated, right? We put it in the edge of that scale. And the reason it's so sophisticated because of that complexity of that process, right? Of the the post-production process and the training specifically on Tom Cruise. It's not every model can do that. And for some reason, that's really stuck in our memory that that's what deepfake is. But deepfake is this scale of generative AI and techniques that just becoming more and more faster to do in a more convincing way. So it's good to remember that that's not what we are looking for when we are looking for manipulated content. So to recap this section of what the technology can do, we can look at the emerging possibilities, right? So we can alter video just like we did with photos until now. We can create realistic video, voice, face, or avatar of someone that never existed. And we can manipulate video, image, or audio of someone's lips, voice, face, body to make that they did something that they never did. And that's keep coming up in those quotes keep coming up in our in-person global convenient, like, okay, this is an emerging field, but still I'm not feeling it. It's not around me. I have a lot of problem with fake news, but not deep fake. So why should I care about it? And maybe it's not part of this audience because you were very worried when I asked that first question. But some of the reason to really take it this seriously is because it's becoming easier and better to do with less data. We could upload just one photo and it's already happening. We don't need specifically to train on specific person because we can upload the photo and it will animate that photo, that image. Everything is improving really rapidly, and we can chain those models together. So we can chain text to video with text to voice with the avatars or whatever, and it's starting to create this really complex media production that we didn't see before. And it's available on mobile as a service, and the same threats that like we saw with we are seeing with shallow fakes are just getting starting to scale and become more common and more difficult to verify. The detection itself is not so accessible, and our brains is not equipped to cope. Like, we really believe what we see. I'm sorry, there is like sirens going around. I hope you don't hear it. So how do we prioritize these threats, right? From a global perspective, context perspective, really looking at the threats analysis. And the way Witness is doing it is by asking who is building this technology, who is being harmed by this technology, and who is not included in the conversation. And one of the most important questions we keep asking ourselves, should we even develop it? And how we can bring the voices to the right places, the right voices to the places. So we ran a convenience series of meetings between 2019 and 2020, and we are about to start our next round in 2023, starting from 2 weeks from today in Nairobi and going through till the end of 2024. And we're doing in-person and online convenience to really understand how the issues we're seeing in this, like the technology development landscape, really affect and emphasize particular issues in each region. So there's maybe a little good news, but then bad news, bad news, bad news. So the good news, which is not really a good news, there are not many deepfake yet, right? It's not really been used in a large scale. Most of what we are still seeing in the media misinformation, disinformation landscape is by shallow fakes, which mostly around miscontextual recycling materials. We see here CGI video that was used to pretend to be a real video. We see a recycled live stream, and we see that the Chechnya Tyron here is an example that he was selectively added to pretend saying something he never said. And that's still 80% of what we see around us. So the deepfake synthetic media is still not really the problem right now, but it is emerging. And now the bad news, bad news, bad news. So the first existing really big threat and problem in deepfake is around sexual gender-based violence, and consensual sexual images are still the biggest problem. It's around 96%. This is maybe not so accurate, but it's definitely on that number when we are talking about malicious use of deepfake. And from a UNESCO report here, we see that 15% of female reported experience some kind of image-based abuse. And deepfake just making it more dangerous, more horrifying, more personal, and mostly targeting journalists and as public figures. We see that it's a problem with like usually app that making it very easy to just upload a photo of someone and make them and sexualize them in any way. And it keeps going. We see it constantly on the news with live streams of deepfakes that just came out on Twitch. There was a lot of discussion around that. And the bigger problem with that is that the deepfake itself don't need to be sophisticated. It doesn't need to be in the Tom Cruise level. It can be really bad and still have this deep psychology effect that that debunking it or detecting it won't really help, because we already see it and we see that it's bad, we see that it's fake, and it still have this horrifying effect on the individual and in women in general. Taking a sip. The second big threat that I talked a little bit before is the fake account, the targeting like this and creating broad deception campaigns. And again, thinking about how text and the chatbot, the AI generated chatbot, gonna make it easier and more complex in the next war. And when we have the liar dividend, when we are seeing something that is true, but it's being claimed that it's false, it's a big threat, because like Paul described in the introduction, like we are starting to not understand what we can believe in, what we're not. So it's very easy to people in power to just challenge everything and saying it's all fake. And then again, the pressure is on journalists, fact checkers, human rights defenders to prove that it's real. And it's a really challenging thing to prove something is fake, but it's a whole different challenge to prove something is real. So that's a huge challenge that we identify. And there is increasing visibility of audio-based fraud case. And we see that also like targeting individuals, cloning their son voice or using some voice that was found online and calling them from a family member, asking for money and so on. So witness approach, just going back because I just said a lot of bad things, we are looking at prepare and don't panic. We want to see what we should prepare to and how we're not panicking, but really making the right effort to bring the right voices to the table. And we really believe that people develop those technology with good intention to solve existing problem, but they just don't listen to the right range of people globally. And that's what we are trying to do. And when we are going to the global convening, we are really doing that. We are really prioritizing and understanding what we need to voice. And so just to recap what I said and adding a little bit more, the main concern that we are hearing is that there is more risk in the local level for journalists, activists, community leader. The gender-based violence is just increasing. There is undermined video as evidence trend. There is overload, under-resourced journalists and fact-checkers that don't have access to detection tools. There is an impact on the public trust. It's all fake anyway. There is a mass production of digital wildfire of online, and it's just becoming so fast to produce and so easy to produce. It's really easy to create so much noise when we need to understand what is real and what is not. And there is really sophisticated use of political disinformation using those technologies. And what we are looking at is, okay, so what is the solution and how we can detect that? So some of the solution areas I wanted to go through together is, can we teach people to spot this? Are there tools for detecting deepfake or synthetic media? How should we build on existing journalist skills and and pipeline and coordinations, and other tools for authenticate synthetic media. There are other areas that less relevant for this talk, but we are also at Witness looking at. So let's start with you. I'm going to open the chat again for myself, and I'm going to ask you to see if you can spot who is fake. What is a fake image, a fake person, what is a real person? And you can write in chat left or right. So who is real here? The left image or the right image is a real person? Most of you got it right. It's the left one. Who is here? The left or the right? So here, most of you got it wrong. It's the left person that is real. Who is here? Left or right? Be divided, but yes, it's the left, not playing anymore. No, it's a fun game. Who is here? Real, left or right? Also divided, it's the left. And here it's a little bit an easy trick, right? Because in order for a generative AI to generate a female with Guinness glass, we need to train them only on that. So we have a lot of details here that not distorting the text and not distorting the face while having this glass in her hand. In this photo, who is real and who is fake? Left or right? So also a bit divided. And here we can see that the left one is the real one, because here the eye is a little bit like there is this like glitch that appear that kind of like hinted that it's a generative, and also here in the hair. So small details are usually kind of like becoming blurry. Who is here, left or right? Who is real? Right, also the background was a little bit. So yeah, it's the left person is real again. And last one, what do you think here? Who is the real person, left or right? Again, a little bit divided, but it's the left. And it's again, it's like a really small details here. I don't know how well you can see on the screen, so it's maybe not so fair, but it's like, the background is a bit glitchy, and it's like, it's look generative in some ways. But those like hinted that I'm hinting to you, like here, this is the eyes, or here's the air, is like kind of like a current algorithmic Achilles heel that are becoming already very good, and it's not really something that we might want to try to teach people, right, to go by, because like, okay, so the teeth are usually a really bad spot, and we can see sometimes they're not aligning the same, but the model can learn it really fast if that's what they will be trained on, and then is that something we want to train our communities to go follow through? Like here we see the hair and like connecting point or something to look at, and the light reflections, they're not coming from the same direction, so many people are looking at the eyes and looking for where the light comes. But again, it's like it's a momentary kind of like moment, right? That we still can see that, and we can see how we can identify how it's not going to be the same in a few weeks, months. And a good example for what I'm saying is this research that came out and say, oh, deepfake not blink. So deepfake video will be really easy to detect because they just don't blink. And then 2 weeks after, deepfake started to blink, because when there is this adverse also relationship between the detection community to the generative community that's aiming to improve. And it's really interesting, this example also, because we saw it a few months ago with a speech of Biden.
Believe the lies of the defeated president. The police were heroes that day. Donald Trump lacked the courage to act.
So we see he's not really blinking, right? But it's a real video, and people just, the social effect of that claim that deepfake not blink can shape the public opinion for a long term. So how also we are dealing with that? Let's see if I'm opening the chat again. Can you detect which one from the Obama videos are fake? Top left, top right, top down, left down. I will play it again. Which one is a fake one? Yes, they're all fake. Yeah, it's confusing. It's not so straightforward, and it's not so easy to detect, and we are tend to believe before we tend to not believe or to doubt, right? And okay, so if we are not going on human ability to detect, what about detection tools, right? If technology generated technology can and should detect it. So let's see what I tried here. I went to the Deepware AI website, which is an online free detection tool to detect deepfakes. And I took one of the Obama videos that we just looked at, and I decreased the resolution and I cut it short. So I added the end and I decreased the resolution, and it came back that it's a real video. And so even the tools that we have online, once we understand how they were trained on and what the data sets, right? So usually if it's a public figure, it's a high resolution data. So it's very easy to think, okay, I will just lower it down and I can like, just like trick the detection tool to, and to bring it to result that it's real. So that's like how it's so easy to also not, once we understand the Achilles heel problem of the algorithm, how we can like work around that. Another tool I used here called V7 Check Deepfake Profile, which is a plugin. It's a free plugin. You can look it online. And it worked really well with the first generative faces, the gun faces, the faces that was not generating fake faces from 2019, 2020. But with the last DALL-E, it's not working anymore. And when I tried those on those ones, they just say that it's not an AI, it's a real face. And the reason is because when the first generation of fake faces were all in the center, the eyes were always in the center. So that's what the detection was looking for. But now we have so many different variations of people that being generated with different lighting, with different expressions, and the eyes are not in the center anymore. So the detection tool is not relevant. So tools are starting to be available, but there is existing gap between like journalists, fact checkers, pipeline and needs, right? This, when we are dealing with high quantity, low quality content, mostly compressed from social media in real time across platform, where we don't need really like a Tom Cruise type of example, right? It's really easy to create doubt. Who has access to those detection tools? The one online are not really providing like sustainable and result that we can trust. And how can they be really useful to our workflow when we pairing them with the capacity to building this like mass wildfire, digital wildfire, and our capacity to really verify content in real time. One of the biggest problem we're seeing, kind of like what we saw with the Obama movie test that I did, I'm just receiving fake or real. I'm not really getting any facts, any details, what the model was trained on, what was the reason it was like it detected as fake or as real. I'm just getting the response. So there's not a lot of like information to access for me to actually bring my human understanding and human context to be paired with those tools, right? It's just like me need to trust those tools. And there are really rapid advances in academic field. Every month we're seeing a lot of great research coming back from the academic field, working around the detection and the capability of detections. But who has access to them? In order to run them, usually you need to have really deep technical skills and access to training sets and so on. And I don't really want to go into all those like that exist online, that exist in academic fields, but it's really interesting to note what they're looking for. So many of them looking for the physical, like they're looking at the digital, physical, and semantic integrity of the image. Like basically what they are wanting to see, does it make sense according to the physical law of physics and the digital technology? And what I mean by that is like usually we are looking at light reflection, eyes, shadows. Most of the time, shadows are being generated in a different way than what the light is. So we are looking at like the physical law of the image or the video. And there are a lot of tools that also take a lot of reference from the media forensic field, where we're looking at noise patterns, model fingerprints, and other types of like camera detection and so on. This is an example of like one of them that looked at pulse. So generative model video are not generating the pulse, and we can detect that with some detection tools, and even Intel is using that right now with their fact catcher tool. But again, we can think about it as like the blinking, right? So deepfake didn't blink, deepfake don't have pulse, so they will have pulse. They can generate that illusion of a pulse. And what I'm trying to say is that it's such a systematic cat and mouse game. Like detection will always be behind because detection is always going around the new emerging generative technology in order to kind of catch up. And the generative technology can always like improve itself faster because of that. Detection are also detection tools are also like data driven. So you can train on Obama, you can train on Zelensky, you can train on Tom Cruise, and the detection tool will really be able to understand their own behavior, the expression, the way they speak, the speech patterns, and they can really help in detecting these specific people. But we cannot train on every person in the world, and so those models are not really generalizing themselves to help with any other type of person or that are not these highly protected public figures. So what I'm trying to say is that detection is complicated, right? It was pretty obvious, but yeah, it's complicated. We are in a really complex media environment. I want to show two examples and then try to bring us to a conclusion. So one is like one of the worst case scenario that we saw in the detection landscape. It's from 2021, March 2021, if I remember correctly. And it was released publicly by the military that claimed to show here the former chief minister of Myanmar accusing the government in corruption.
ကျွန်တော်ကတော့ ရောင်တိုင်းဒေသကြီးဝန်ကြီးချုပ်တာဝန်ထမ်းဆောင်ခဲ့တဲ့ဦးဖြိုးမသိန်းဖြစ်ပါတယ် ကျွန်တော်အနေနဲ့ Rocking Foundation နဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးပြောချင်တာကတော့ Rocking Foundation ဆိုတာဘောင်ဆန်းစုကြည်ကိုမျက်နှာလိုချင်တဲ့လူတွေအတွက်မရ
So we can see there is like, it's a really low resolution. There's some kind of like, it's not really, the sound not really syncing with the speech. He is not moving. So there is some kind of weirdness about that. And immediately people put it in that online detection tool I used for Obama, and it came back fake. And it started this like news cycle that claiming that it's being fake. And there, like I said, there was reason to suspect that it's fake, but more certainly it was just a forced confession. So it was a real fake, not a fake fake. It was someone that forced to confess to something that he didn't mean to say. But these cases also show us that there was almost no ability among journalists, fact checkers, civil society in Myanmar to have the skills and the tools to challenge the claim that it's fake. And that was what we really found the biggest problem out of this example. And the online tools that show that it's fake didn't really explain why. So we couldn't even undermine that. Another example I want to bring, and it's two examples, one in front of the other, is the need to understand the intent and the local context of those materials. So detection tool cannot have that. And we saw that in, here is a video that came before Zelensky of Putin, which was supposed to be a satire, a political satire, a deepfake that Putin here is claiming to have peace conversation with Ukraine.
Дорогие соотечественники, тема моего обращения – ситуация на Украине. Только что прошло.
Which is a deepfake. And if you saw it in the big, you could see a little bit more the blurriness between the head and the shoulder. It's not a great deepfake. And it wasn't supposed to be one. It was supposed to be a satirical punch. And then we have the Zelensky example that was supposed to be with malicious intent, calling for action to surrender. So there is a real harm here for society. And then the deepfake Putin was recirculated as here there was also malicious intent aiming for Putin too. So it's also being circulated in a way that it's really important to understand the local context around those videos that are being generated.
Дорогие соотечественники.
So those examples that I just brought up, raising or emphasizing the key question that we already talked about, the effectiveness of the detection tool, how relevant are they with the data we are using, the low compression data that we are having online, and who has the access and skill to actually use them. And there are a few recommendations that we are saying that journalists and fact checkers and human rights defenders should use, which is to review those new emerging trend and understand the glitch and distortion. We are not recommending that maybe to everyone, but you should have that under your, to understand those new glitches, apply existing video verification and forensic approach that we already applying in our pipeline are already can also support this type of emerging trends, and utilizing new emerging AI-based approach like the plugin I showed or the deepfake detection online tool can be a really good start to kind of read the materials, right? Especially if you're using the verification approaches of taking screenshots and reverse image search and then using those tools. So kind of creating this pipeline around it. And at Witness, we are looking at 3 more areas of solutions. One is around standards. So we are looking at how provenance information can be attached to the materials itself, how we can see what model was used to create it, who edited, and how it can be part of the end result that is accessible and available to the public in general. We're also exploring how labeling, unlike disclosure and the metadata, how labeling can be part of the creative act of the advocacy act, how we can use labeling not to just label disinformation, but also label creative creative videos, satire videos, and other types of deepfake, and use it to push us to understand how the media was created. And we're also working on a deepfake rapid response force project, which we are connecting local journalists and fact checkers with media forensic and deepfake experts in real time when we are detecting a really high impactful deepfake case. So we're creating this hotline that provides access to skill and cutting edge technology. So taking key takeaway from solutions is that our eyes and ears will always fail us. We tend to believe, and even if we know something is fake, our brain really cannot separate that information. Detection is not yet accessible, skills are not accessible, and there is a limit and unequal access to those skills and tools. Detection tools must complement media literacy. We don't have enough AI media literacy, and they must complement the journalist, fact checkers, and OSINT skills. And authenticity infrastructure is emerging, but we still need to guard it and be really prepared for it too. So I'm opening for the last time the chat. And all of you were already pretty worried at the beginning, but I wanted to see where you are now when we are ending this presentation. Well, I see a lot of you stayed really high and now on 11 even, okay. Yeah, but what is really important to emphasize here is that it's we need to prepare for it. We need to see it. We need to understand the landscape in order to really shape the technology, shape how it's supposed to be built, how it's supposed to be regulated, and be part of it and not just like being affected of it. So yeah, I'll stop here. Thank you so much for your time. I hope it wasn't too fast, and I'm here for questions.
Thank you so much, Shireen, for that. I think that was awesome. That was amazing. That was intensive, thorough, and quite eye-opening. I want you to catch your breath. For our web participants, please don't go anywhere. There is a second part. I think you're going to really enjoy it. I have a real case demonstration to show you, and probably what you've seen. You can see the real life impact implications of what we are talking about here. But for now, I want you to go to the chat box, and there is a quick survey that we need your help with regarding this session session that you just seen. This is a form that we hope that you see when you click that link. When that link pops up, there are lots of questions already, and please, while getting to the questions, please go to that link, click it, and let us know your before and after. I think she did something similar to this. Please go to that link, click it, and let us have your view on this issue. And so while that is going on, please, everybody would like to have your opinion on that. The link is in the chat box. Shireen, I think the issue of misinformation and of course latching on deepfakes to advance what you actually believe in is a critical thing. For instance, Nigeria recently had a presidential election, and there was a really viral deepfake video that went around of popular American superstars raising up banners to support a particular candidate. And even if you have no background in tech, because of the values, because you expect these international superstars to refrain from interfering with politics of other countries, you would not expect them to actually be participating in such kind of videos. But we actually saw some actually verified individuals on social media, some professionals, people that have a lot of followers, and sharing these kinds of videos. And when I saw that, it made me to actually have a quite different perspective regarding this issue of misinformation and deepfakes, which is the fact that it's really, in many cases, and I think somebody mentioned it in the chat box, in many cases, it's not really about individuals getting convinced that these videos are fake or not, but finding something, no matter how ridiculous, no matter how wrong, that really aligns with what they believe in. If that video is on social media and an individual actually believes in a particular cause that is aligned with the cause, they tend to pick up this content, this video, and further disseminate it. What do you think about this?
Yeah, that's a great point, Paul. I think that's exactly what social media is like built on, right? We are like this new media manipulation landscape is just an add-on to the same kind of like trigger effect and engagement of that the social media has already in the platform, that like look at how to personalize what you are care about, what will motivate you, and mostly what motivating you is those like intense emotions that the content can give, and it's just tapping into that. So again, it's when the malicious cause exists there, it's gonna go through those channels that is pretty pretty accessible. It's pretty like it's being built for this actor to those platforms are really good for those actors to kind of like manipulate and grab your attention too. And it's true, it's not like on the like, it's not just I believe it individually, it's how it's shaped the public discourse around me, and how it's like there is some kind, even if I know it's fake, there's something that left in my brain around that content because it's so convincing. Like visual information is so much more convincing than any other medium. So it's even going like passing those kind of like a safeguard that we have.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. So for everybody, in spite of what Shireen has taught you today, this video was of national importance in Nigeria, and I want you to watch it and tell me what you think, whether it's a fake video or whether it's real. So quick background. This is a story, is a video that involves a Nigerian politician, a state governor, supposedly receiving bribe from somebody, that is a man. Now, what you are looking at, is it a fake video or does it look real? Like if you've been doing when Shireen was saying the chat box is where you tell us, is it real? Is this a real video? Do you think this video is real or not? So you could see it was presented as an undercover journalism work. So, so please let us know what you think. Is this a real video or do you think is a fake video? So everybody is saying deepfake. Okay. Now, what do you think, Shireen? Shireen, does that look real or does that look fake? But before you do that, let's listen to what Nigeria's president said. This is where it gets interesting because it went all the way to the presidency. Quick background to the video you are watching. It was a presidential interview. Nigerian president was going for the second time and a journalist asked this question.
See again. Why has your government remained silent about the corruption allegations against the governor of Kano State, Abdullahi Ganduje? And why have we even seen you standing next to him at a rally?
Now, listen to Nigeria's president's response to that video.
These are all directed at Mr. President. So he can talk for himself.
He doesn't know. As I told you, I have seen the clip. I don't know how much technology was used, but can Ganduje fail to trust somebody to get the money to him? He has to take it directly himself, smiling. I honestly am completely overwhelmed, and the system has given me some relief. It is in the court, it's in the state assembly, so let them as much as possible deal with it. But Kano, this thing has received a lot of publicity, and I hope by the time I go on my campaign for re-election, there will be some answers from the courts or the state assembly in Kano State about the past.
Now, so that's the video. So the president's official response was that this looks like a deep fake video. And from human perspective, he said, this governor couldn't have decided to take that kind of money on its own. And I think our forum members said, some said it's real, some said it's fake. So what is your assessment, Shireen?
You're using the same tools that I'm using against me. It's a yeah, it's a really tough thing to just like look at something for a few seconds and think that you can know. And I know I did it on all of us, but yeah, I don't think it's a deep fake video. That will be my assumption. I don't know if it's a edit in any way. Like I couldn't really explore that. So it might be manipulated in some way, but not in a deep fake. Not using deep fake technology.
Thank you. So we go to the questions. So we'll go to the questions now. And for those on this call, please, I also like hearing your voice. So if you would like to take the floor, please just raise your hand and I'll activate your mic. So the first question is this: isn't it the responsibility of social media platforms to prevent or check publication of deep fakes under US high or any other international law? If yes, are they training their algorithms to tackle the problem? So what are your thoughts on this, Shireen?
Yeah, it's really interesting. There was like just a framework that was launched last week from the partnership on AI that led it, which looked at who is responsible for the content that is being created. So there is the creators, there is the technology builders, the developer themselves, and there is the distribution, the social media platform, and so on. And all of those actors has some kind of responsibility in that cycle, right? The technology developers need to create some kind of detection metadata or fingerprint to the image itself that will be easy for the distribution platform to detect. The problem is that it's not so easy to really understand. Like there's a lot of like arguments around the text to image and the artistic creative copyrights. And many times the output of those technology of the text to image look a lot like an artistic like output and a creative output, or like a really good photography. So it's really hard to develop all those tools, but they are doing that. They are doing that because there is a lot of like, again, when we are dealing with copyrights issues, there is a lot of financial risk for those platforms. We are dealing with human rights violation. There's not any economical risk, so there's less of motivation to do so. But they are looking at it and working on how you can label, either create labels or remove content. But sometimes we also, as a human rights defenders, we want to preserve that content because it's part of some kind of like a process that's happening, and so when they remove it, we also want to have the ability to access it from a research perspective, from a criminal perspective, and so on.
Yes, so Ibrahim, you have the floor. Tell us your name and where you're joining us from, then ask your question.
Hello, how are you? This is Ibrahim. I'm from Lebanon, watching this. I would like to ask you about the fact check. If we have like a platform or an application that journalists all over the world can like reconnect or discuss or confirm the fact check of this news or article or video or whatever we're posting? Do we have such a platform?
Thanks, Ibrahim. Paul, maybe you can say more about it, but not that I'm aware of like one platform that exists. I know there are like WhatsApp and Telegram groups that works together to kind of like in times of crisis mostly. And part of what like Witness, what I just described at the end, what Witness is starting to work on is the connecting journalists and fact checkers communities in real time in relation to a deepfake case, to media forensic experts to kind of like have conversation and verify stuff together. But it's a great idea for a platform, Ibrahim.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think you did a very great job on that question. We have Samira Kaliab. Samira, did I get your name well? Where are you joining us from, and what's your question?
Yeah, you spelled my name well. My name is Samara. I'm calling you from Ethiopia, East Africa. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. My question is, how can we cope with the deep fakes being made like every minute, every second, on every subject? That's my question. How can we cope up? Like checking one story, then another 10 will appear on your desktop. How can we cope up with them? Thank you.
Yes, Samara, it's a great concern that we all have. I think that's why a lot of us mentioned that we are 10 in a scale of 1 to 10 worried about that. Important to say that we still don't see deepfake every minute, right? We do see a lot of like involvement in generative AI in general, like masking object out and or adding object in. We see that starting to appear. We see a lot of text to image, but it's not really a deepfake in a way that it's really convincing. You cannot just say from text to video, I'll make someone say something he didn't say. You need a lot of expertise still there. We see that that's the trend, so we should be worried. And yeah, that's why the first question was really on point, like who is responsible? There is like actors that needs to take responsibility from the labeling part, the disclosure part, from the content moderation part, from law and regulation to make sure we are all safe and being, and we have also like who we can approach it when we want to opt out, if we want to also have discussion about if it's real or not, right? We don't have those like still channels open for community.
Yes, the next question goes to Dingan Mithi. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name well. You have the floor. You can unmute your mic. You can talk. While waiting for Dingan, Nagarasina, you also have the floor.
Yes, I am Dr. Nagaratnam.
Okay.
From
oh, sorry.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, yes. Go ahead, please.
Is it?
Yes, you can go ahead, please. You have the floor.
Yes. I am Professor Dr. S. Nagaratnam, head of the Department of Madurai Kamaraj University's Department of Communication. I have recently translated UNESCO's Misinformation, Disinformation book in Tamil. So I am very much concerned about misinformation, disinformation, and also I am very much concerned about deep fakes and other related misinformation propaganda. But in Tamil Nadu, I am not sure that how many deep fakes in India, this part of India, I am not sure that how many deep fakes have been created. And it is not much been discussed in media also. So I wish to study in our academic field and also wish to sensitize our students community through research. As Shireen already told, we have to incorporate this particular research in our department to train them students to identify at least what is deep fakes, which one is deep fake at least.
Okay.
Yeah, can we proceed with this? If we proceed, what will be the obstacles for us in getting right data, and also, as you said, getting the right information on deep fake, and also able to detect deep fakes. These are all my concerns. Kindly inform me what I can do at this juncture.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Hello.
Yes, I think that was a comment, but I think Digan, you can ask a question too. I think we'll respond to them together.
Okay, thanks so much for you, Paul. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
I'm good. Okay, calling from Malawi. Okay, so I wanted to find out, you see, Malawi we're grappling with the COVID-19 disinformation campaign, the misinformation which is flourishing right now. So my question to my colleague there is what's the role of artificial intelligence in dealing with COVID-19 disinformation, and also how can we build a platform to strengthen fact-checking using these new AI technologies? Thanks so much.
Yeah, I think we should respond to the two questions together. The first one is which raises an interesting angle, expanding journalism and communication curriculum towards addressing deepfakes. Do you think, my personal concern, should it be a journalist that will also be started with this responsibility in the university? And the question regarding deepfakes and COVID-19. Shireen, you have the floor.
Yeah, for the first one, it's really interesting because I discussed it, it's so complicated to have one solution for detecting deepfake, but it's so important to have a media literacy around it, right? So having it as a part of curriculum is so meaningful, and I will recommend making that a dynamic curriculum, because there's so many progression every day, and we cannot just say, okay, that's what we need to know. We do need to understand that those detection tools or the deepfake are being based on data sets. So maybe how they are slowly become more generalized and become more better could be a good approach to add. But other than that, every media literacy around how we should engage with the new media manipulations and how to combine that to OSINT or verification techniques, and how to keep on track on the online available or academic research or detection will be great. And on the second question, I don't have a lot of general AI in COVID. There was a lot of it's part of the broad, very targeted deceptions campaign. And other than what I talked in the presentation, I don't have any specific example, but any public event is either if it's a war zone, protest, a state violence, or a health concern, it's always where we see those bad actors engaging, and usually through chatbots, post, text generator, which makes it very easy and very fast to create multiple posts, and that sounds and seem realistic. But I don't have a lot to offer on that subject.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that was good enough. There is no peculiarity to, I believe, regarding target public event for deepfakes. As long as it's a publicly relevant event, it's always be a target. So we go to Mr. Lanre Olagunjo. You have the floor, please.
Hi, thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, Shireen, for the nice presentation. My question is this. In Nigeria, we just had a presidential election, and deepfakes were overwhelmingly used. I know I can remember at least two audios that actually put a lot of pressure on fact checkers, across the nation. The question is this: how accessible can these tools, detection tools, be? I understand, for instance, that a couple of them are very expensive, and they're not, and as a result of that, they're not accessible. Is it possible that maybe with top organizations like ICFJ and other ones can talk to social media companies to make some of these tools a lot more accessible? That way, fact checkers and journalists can help timely debunk misinformation, because the amount of time it takes to debunk them, it's also a challenge. While you're trying to look into it over and over, misinformation is going at a very wide speed. Is it possible that we can engage the social media organization companies to help with making the tools more accessible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do you want to address that right away, or should I add another question?
You can start if you want to. Yeah.
To address that.
Okay. Yeah, I think like that's part of what Witness is trying to do with the deepfake rapid response force, to connect in real time to video forensic and deepfake expert that can like verify and use their own cutting edge academic research detection tools. Social media platforms have their own detection tools, but they are not publicly accessible. We are doing a lot of conversation with different social media platform or actors to engage and see how we can bring those concerns forward. I think also the example you said are even more complicated, because audio deepfakes are even more complicated than visual deepfake, especially in different language. So the data set needs to be trained on the local language in order to detect that. And many detection tools and detection technologies being developed in the global north, and it's not really taking into consideration also the various of language. And we see that a lot in text generated, text to image, text to video are not working really well in other languages. So that's a huge problem by its own. And that's exclude a lot of community already from the start. So we are working at Witness also to assess that harm and risk that exists also in that sense.
Thank you very much. So next we have, we go straight to Kemo Cham. Alpha, what did I get your name? Where are you joining us from, and what's the question?
Yes, you got my name correct. So yes, my name is Kemo Cham. I am a Gambian, but I live and work in Freetown, Sierra Leone. I'm calling presently from Doha, Qatar. So from Shireen's presentation, it's like there is no, 100% solution in sight. I mean, research are still being done and all that. So I have a feeling that we can never even get to where we want to, at a point where we do not have these kind of problems. Because it's technology, people are creating solutions and others are creating obstacles. So can we ever get to a point wherein technology itself can solve this problem? And while we are thinking about that, what us as journalists can do now at this point to regain that trust? Because the whole issue about this deep fake and all fake news is the trust between the mainstream media and the public that is draining. What can we do as journalists at this point to temporarily at least solve this problem?
That's a good question. Shireen?
Yeah, that's a really deep question, because yeah, it seems like where we are heading is it's even more complex, right? Media landscape, where we will be even less and less equipped with the right tools. But again, if we are advocating and regulating from the law side to disclose and create metadata that attach to the content that's being developed, maybe we will see a future where it will be very accessible to right-click an image or video and receive that information. I think from what we can do now is develop a lot of media literacy around AI, and kind of like challenge the conversation that AI takes our jobs, right? AI will take over the world. It's not really what it is. It's a still algorithmic process that is being trained on specific data. And it's really important for us to engage in what it really is and what it really can do, and like educate the public to know how to doubt it and not just to doubt everything. So I think from a journalist perspective, that's something we can do, and use existing examples that we see all over, like we just discussed about what happened with Nigeria election, and use those case studies to educate and not just to debunk it, but to develop future understandings.
Thank you very much. So I want to take at least probably one more question before we call it a day. And so the question was sent, and I said it's talking about the current legal landscape for AI, deepfakes, and the likes. So what insights exist out there that you think our participants should be aware of legally?
There's a lot of going on with the DSA and the EU AI Act. There is also happening in the US, which starting to kind of like explore how it's a fundamental right for people to understand the technology, which is a really interesting phrasing. I think like there is a lot of like a conversation that complex system, like we see with ChatGPT, the most recent text generated from OpenAI, creates such a complex landscape that one system that was developed to just generate text can now be used to a whole different types of systems. So how can you regulate that becomes like a whole new questions for the regulators. And usually regulators and law works slower than the technology itself. So it's still in the process, and it's very interesting to read those and see many times they're asking for opinions. So also engage and bring the right like scares or worried opinion to those kind of discussion.
You're absolutely correct. And I think we are getting to the top of the hour, and I want really to ask for your last remarks. What are your thoughts, and what is your advice? And if our attendees want to go home with anything, what do you think the key message from you would be to them?
The key message will be like, I think what we felt, what was also the atmosphere here with the questions, like we are ending the period of we're preparing and not panicking, right? Because we are ending the period that we're preparing for that technology. It's already here, but we are entering a new cycle of how we can understand it and follow it and educate about that technology. And that's a lot of power we have as a civic society and journalists. And also make sure we are voicing the right concerns and using the cases we see on the ground as case study to voice those concerns. But still, deepfakes are not everywhere. We are seeing the technology is becoming better, but it's still not as sophisticated as we are talking about it, right? So we need also to ground the conversation and just take a breath and see how we are engaging with this and not just like being an audience to it.
Thank you so much, Shireen. We really appreciate it, and many thanks to all our attendees. But before you go, I just want everybody, attendees, to know that next week we are having an interesting session, equally interesting session on data, visual storytelling, and meme journalism. So don't forget, this is still part of the Empowering the Truth Global Summit, which is aimed at amplifying the reach of reliable facts. And the experts we'll be bringing on next week is Professor Paul Bradshaw, who is from the Birmingham City University in the UK. And the same time that we kicked off today is when we'll be starting tomorrow. You need to register for that session. So if you can point your phone camera to that QR code, that would be great. Or if you are a subscriber to our weekly newsletter, the newsletter is going to contain the direct link. Or if you're a forum member, I will soon upload the link to that page. And I also encourage you, as much as possible, a number of you have been asking for this particular presentation. Do not worry, we are actively curating the videos, and they are already out. Previous sessions are already live on ICFJ's YouTube page. And
it's my top priority. That's why today I'm announcing a new illegal migration bill to do exactly that. The Prime Minister and I have been working flat out for months to bring this legislation to Parliament. This bill will mean that if you come here illegally...
Oh, okay, it's Kemo. Okay, I was a little bit concerned that, come on, that can't be me. So please, the only place I think you can quickly and easily have access to links and everything that we share that you need to is in our Facebook forum, and I encourage you to join it. And I just put the link in the chat box right now. Click the link, and every link that you every material that you have that you need, the link to videos of previous editions, resources, they are going to be shared there. So please and please, once again, click this link for that information. And the Empower the Truth Girls Summit continues next week, and you can keep track of all the sessions and register to attend all the sessions using the link I just put up. And do not forget, at the end, towards the end of this series, there will be grant opportunities. So please and please start wrapping your head around what you can uniquely do. And towards by next week and the week after, you are going to have a clear-cut official information regarding how this is going to work out. So on behalf of the International Center for Journalists and our partners on this very special Empowering the Truth Summit, I want to thank you extremely very much for joining us from different parts of the world, for taking our time out of your busy daily schedule to learn and be part of this very important and relevant session that is geared towards improving access and reach of the truth. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Shireen, and I hope you also had fun like I actually did.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone.